Hi, I'm Tanya, and today I want to continue my series on how to declutter your life. In my last video, I was talking more about the technical strategies of how to declutter your outer world, so your physical spaces, your time, your finances, and relationships. And this time I want to talk about decluttering your inner world, those softer spots, so your mind, your body, your spirit, and your heart. Before I get started though, I want to remind you to always check out the comments below for any freebies or mini offers, as well as a link to my free clarity call, and remember to like and subscribe. So let's get started. So I like to organize things, as you know, including healing and how to kind of conceptualize things, because it helps you put the pieces together. At least it helps me. So I find that doing that and having visuals helps people better understand a way to overcome the challenges in their life. And so with the work I do, I decided to kind of frame it into two parts: decluttering your outer world, as I talked about in my last video, and your inner world. And I find that when I help people declutter their outer world, they can slowly start looking within, start looking at those patterns, start looking at those beliefs and those thoughts and that trapped trauma or those trapped emotions, and doing it in a way that's gentle instead of just boom, going right in. Because when you're able to declutter your outer world, you're able to function better, you're better able to focus, you have more clarity, more direction, and then there's less stress, which makes it safe for you to go inward. And so when you're at that point to go more inward and to declutter all that garbage that is preventing you from staying balanced in your mind, body, spirit, and heart, the first thing, and probably the piece that takes over quite a bit, is the mind. And so what does decluttering the mind look like? Well, it looks like letting go of thoughts, beliefs, even habits, that you need to let go of, that get in the way and that create barriers from you taking action maybe, or that keep you isolated. I find a lot of the time people's suffering gets amplified because they have shame, and then they isolate, or they're struggling with their thoughts, they're struggling with their beliefs that make it hard to connect with others. So then they isolate more, which just keeps that cycle going, and it makes things worse instead of better. So I'm going to give suggestions after. I'm just going to go through the first 4, and then we'll look at ways that you can kind of shift these things and then reconnect. So the second one is the body, and that can be interpreted in many different ways. And one way to look at it is, what are you putting into your body that is not nurturing it? So what sorts of things do you need to let go of? Maybe you have a sweet tooth and you're eating way too much sugar that's causing inflammation, causing stress on your body, and causing illness. And then that also affects your mental health and your well-being. It could even be the way you view your body. Maybe you need to let go of those beliefs. It could even be a type of exercise that you're doing. Maybe it's not good for your body type or where you're at right now. So it's looking at how you're engaging with your body, what you're putting into it, what do you need to let go of? And when we're doing this process, it's important to remember, what are you going to replace it with? Because it's not just about letting go and being left with nothing. You're creating space so that you can replace it with something new, and something that is more healthy, and that's something that keeps you in alignment and helps you heal. So let's look at the next one, the spirit. And this one, to me, it can be defined in so many ways. It could be defined as your soul purpose, that inner knowing, that soul that came into your physical body. So however you connect with what that means. For me, when I work with people, it's what's keeping you distracted? What's pulling you away from your spirit, away from your life purpose, away from that spiritual side of you? What do you need to let go of that prevents you from that connection and from staying on the path of what you're meant to do? And then last one is the heart. Now the heart is different because for me, the heart is acting from a place of compassion, from love. So what relationship dynamics do you have in your life that prevent you from acting from that place of love and compassion? You know, is it built up resentment? Is it a belief system that stops you from acting from the heart? Is it a big fat wall of protection that stops you from loving or being able to be loved? Is it a belief that you're not worthy? So it's being able to look at each of these areas, because they're all connected, and look at what is stopping me from connecting from them and what is stopping me from being balanced and being able to be engage in the outer world and stay connected to my inner world. What helps you have that balance between the two? So I'm not going to go through the last 5 steps that I did in the last video, because you can use that approach. I want to focus on this video more on what are 5 different strategies, 6 different strategies actually, that you can use to help you let go, yes, but also reconnect and be in more balance. And so the first one is thought replacement. Now this could be anything from mantras to affirmations to different statements that you want to say, to really just even repeating a word. I've done that sometimes where my mind just takes over and I'm not in a good place and I want to shift my mood and I want to shift my energy. So I literally will just repeat a word. Now, there's a lot of different talk about affirmations and whatnot, that they don't work, they do work. I think they work, it's how you engage with them. So if you're using it to calm the mind and just kind of like, why am I thinking these stinking thinking? I don't know if you heard that before, stinking thinking. Someone told that to me once. And just replace it with something. So it could just be like, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe, even if you don't believe it. Just to help that other tape, that other noise to kind of subside. The other thing that I find them helpful for is if you're repeating it and you're connecting with your body, it will help shift your energy. So if you're just saying it, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, like a robot, it might help. But if you really try to embody that feeling, I've talked about this in my blogs and maybe in my videos, I'll sing a statement. And then that way I'm really like shifting my energy because it's in the vocal cord that's connected to the vagus nerve. I'm vibrating, so then I'm shifting my energy. So if you're doing it with other things, I find it very helpful because then it helps you shift, calm the mind, and connect with your body. And so that brings me to the second one, which is EFT tapping. So if you're pairing it with EFT tapping, and I have a few videos, I'm going to continue to post some more, where you're doing a statement and you can do a video script, you can make your own script, you can do it on the spot, which is quite powerful, where you just do free association. When you're doing it, you're hitting different acupuncture points, and I'm doing it, there's one here, here, okay? And that connects with your nervous system, because a lot of the struggles that people have are because they feel unsafe. Their nervous system is overactive, hypervigilant, and then you might have beliefs that come up, you might have fears that come up because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. So if you're doing the EFT tapping and you're connecting to that nervous system, to that sense of feeling safe, and it's helping calm your nervous system, and you're doing these statements, it helps my understanding to reprogram the brain and kind of move and shift things. And it can be very, very powerful. The research on it is incredible. There are cases where people had extreme depression and then it went down to 0 doing EFT tapping with an EFT practitioner, of course. Definitely, there's tons of stuff online that you can use that could have a dramatic effect. I always encourage people to get extra support through someone who's trained and a professional, because then you have a deeper shift and you're being supported so that if really intense stuff comes up, you're not sitting there by yourself, because it could come up and then you need to be able to move through it in a supported, safe environment. So let's move on to the next one, meditation. And speaking of safe, that doesn't feel safe for a lot of people, and that's okay. So doing things like a moving meditation, if you have a lot of anxiety, is very helpful because you're moving that anxious energy out and you're not feeling trapped. So that might be something for you. And that really helps connect the mind, body, and spirit. I am a fan of Yoga Nidra and things like NSDR, where you connect with your body. That is very powerful because trauma is trapped in the body. And if you're able to continuously connect with your body and feel safe, that retrains the nervous system. And it also can help shift and move and change your vibration. Depending on the Yoga Nidra that you do, they have an I am statement. And I find that very powerful because, again, it's doing it and connecting with your third eye and your heart chakra. And doing this I am statement and actually really feeling your body and feeling your energy, and it will shift your consciousness. And I say that because I experienced that myself doing that practice and doing it daily. I find doing it daily is very, very powerful. And as I mentioned, it's picking a type of meditation that works for you. Could be sitting, could it be moving meditation, it could be mindfulness throughout the day. And then doing breath work and connecting with your body. Overall, you'll notice that all these suggestions are talking about connecting with your body. Because what happens with trauma is that people disconnect and then they don't have that connection to their body because that's where the trauma is and it's too intense. So then they do other things, but then the trauma stays trapped in the body, then the nervous system is always overactive, and then it's this vicious cycle. So it's really important to do this with support and to do it gently and bit by bit if you're in a state where you are overactive and hypervigilant and it's a lot. Be gentle, go slow. And that's why I love number 4, which is nature. Because nature automatically calms you down, even if you're in your head and you're thinking and you're feeling anxious. If you just put your hand on a tree, you will feel better. And that's it. You don't have to do different techniques that, might be too much at the moment. It automatically calms your nervous system down in such a beautiful way. And then it's like, oh, my mind is slowed down. How did that happen after half an hour walking in the park? Or walking barefoot if possible. And the other thing I find that it helps you do is reconnect to your inner spirit. Because nature is always doing its thing. It doesn't have technology to distract it. It doesn't have all these things of modern day society to distract it. So it's always connected to its soul, to its spirit, and to that energy. And so that's why I love it, because it's not just about calming the mind and grounding. It's also about connecting to your spirit. So I cannot speak more about nature and the power of it because it's such a simple tool, and it's something that I really highly recommend to integrate into your day every day. And so let's move on to the next one, number 5, compassion and empathy. This is a hard one, and it's like, what is compassion? And it's really about understanding and not judging. That's one way to look at it. And so it's asking yourself, how can you connect yourself and with others in an understanding, non-judgmental way? What can you do? How can you do that? And what kinds of actions can you do that create less suffering for yourself and others? What gratitude practice can you integrate into your life? Because that can be very helpful, because that helps you, further cultivate that empathy and compassion for yourself, and to also help you focus on what is going well. Another thing to think about is, what are some simple things that you can do each day to be compassionate? And one is just kind communication. Learning different ways to communicate your needs instead of demanding things. Another one is apologizing for your mistakes, right? Because then you're taking responsibility, but forgiving yourself, not over apologizing, forgiving yourself, and then apologizing for something that you might have done. And another one that's super hard is the active listening. What is that? Well, that means I'm listening to you without thinking about what I'm going to say as soon as you're done talking. That's a simple way to put it. And just like really trying to embody what the person's saying and trying to understand and let go of judgments while you're doing that. That's a huge one. Another thing is celebrating. So acknowledging your success, acknowledging accomplishments, celebrating, encouraging people, all of this really helps bring a love energy, which to me is connected to compassion. And lastly, accepting and being patient with others and yourself. Because when we're patient, when we're understanding, and when we accept, that helps kind of release that trauma because you're being seen, heard, and understood. Because a lot of the time the trauma stays trapped because no one heard us, or maybe they did, but they didn't actually hear, they silenced us. We weren't understood, we weren't seen. And so when we're compassionate with ourselves, it helps us to go through that cycle and to complete the full trauma, the cycle of trauma, and allowing it to be complete so it doesn't stay trapped in you. And then it helps others as well. And so this is another one, the last one, and talking about that completion that ties in nicely is actually releasing those trapped emotions, releasing that trapped trauma. And that can be done a number of ways. One is connecting with your body, and there's, just doing simple meditation and just breathing into the sensations in your body if you feel comfortable enough to do that, because discomfort's going to be there, but enough that you're not going to put yourself in a state of panic. Emotion code is another one that I've talked about, where you're releasing trapped emotions in your body and in your energy field. And I'll put the links about that below. And then the other one that I talked about with compassion is being seen and heard. That helps release those emotions. If you're able to cry in front of someone and you were never able to cry about this particular thing that happened to you, that release and being seen and heard, and that person being there with you in a non-judgmental way will help release that trapped emotion and that trapped trauma. Because that trapped emotion, what is that? The body in motion. It's the sensation. The feeling is what we call it. So the sadness, the fear, okay? So releasing that sensation in the body. And then the last one that I want to talk about is somatic techniques. This is a big one, and I'm definitely doing more research, and I'm definitely learning more about it and want to be able to integrate it more into the work I do with clients and be able to share it in these videos. Peter Levine is a big person that has done a lot of work, and he's one of the pioneers for somatic work. And that's where you're really just staying with the body. You don't have to relive the trauma. You don't have to remember anything. And you're just staying with the sensations in the body in a mindfulness state and being walked and guided with a therapist who's trained, okay, or a trauma coach who's trained in this technique, and allowing that sensation, as I mentioned earlier, to move through the body. A lot of insight comes with these techniques. There's even ones where you do movement. So let's say I'm talking and I'm sharing about an experience, and you'll see I talk with my hands. And I do that movement in a mindfulness state, information will come, insight will come. If I change that movement and do it slower, or maybe I do it faster and then slower, there's different ways that these techniques are done with trauma-informed therapists and coaches that can help you release. So I highly, highly recommend, if you're not doing these techniques with your therapist and you're just doing talk therapy, I highly recommend looking into alternatives of working with people who are trained in somatic work, because it is so powerful. It can be very gentle and very transformative. So that was a lot. I know that, with there being so much information online, it can be a bit of an information overload. So I recommend taking these 6 different techniques and maybe trying one for a week and doing some research on it, and then continuing even for a month and finding someone that can support you with it if you don't already have a practitioner that you can work with. So let's recap and maybe think, which one do I want to pick to look at first? And so the first one is that thought replacement. That's one that you can do daily on your own and have fun and play with it. The second one was EFT tapping, and that can really help calm your nervous system and release trauma and shift those beliefs. The third one was meditation, definitely finding one that works for you, that keeps you safe. And next one, number 4, nature pretty much always will help you feel safe, so that's a great go-to, that's simple. And then number 5 was compassion and empathy, just doing daily practices of how you engage with yourself and others to build that compassion. And then number 6, looking at ways to release those trapped emotions and that trapped trauma, and finding someone to support you in those different techniques, as well as doing them on your own. And by doing all these different techniques, plus more, because these aren't the only ones that you can do to help you reconnect your mind, body, and spirit and heart, and declutter those things that are getting in the way of having that balance and connection to them. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, remember to like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Take care.